It's a great day for thoroughbred racing here in Hallandale Beach, and we're off and running on this Saturday edition of Gulfstream Today. Jason and Acacia joining you, Little Paddock Studios, as our Rainbow Six Mandatory Madness takes over, well, state of affairs just about everywhere.
Absolutely. Everything must go today. Giant carryover already, just shy of $1 million, but we will see that very well bet today. Everything must go, so usually you have to worry about trying to get that one unique ticket in that Rainbow Six. Today, it's all going to be paid out.
Couple of key singles to be had, I think, on more budget-minded plays, and we'll talk about that a bit later in this Saturday edition of Gulfstream Today, as we are fast and firm. The sun is out. It really is a nice Saturday here, middle of June, down south here in southern Florida. Now, as far as yesterday, it was not an easy day. I think I wound up having just one winner on top for the 9 races. You fared a little bit better, but not good enough at the end of the day to win Beat the Expert.
I got the winner in the very last race and was hopeful that that would be enough for me, but there was 3 people with one more winner than I had. Congratulations, Rob, Joey, and Marion. You beat the expert. You will be getting your Beat the Expert polos. Don't forget to tweet us. Let us know that you were playing. Let us know that you won whenever you get that polo. Maybe show off your guns a little bit, and you can have those bragging rights now.
Winning the shirt off your back. We'll play again next Friday here at Gulfstream Park. Again, free to play, our Facebook page. Give that a follow, as well as our Twitter handles, and of course at Gulfstream Park as well. Now, moving on to what's on tap today, it almost goes without saying, and it really has been sort of that crescendo buildup throughout the last few days. We have the dollar rolling super high 5 and the early pick 5 at around $12.55 as we start the first of 11, but it really is all about the Rainbow Six on a day we have plenty to wager on, some big fields, and what are we, $912 short of a cool mill in that carryover.
And it's going to be way, way past that. I would guess 4 or 5 million today, and will certainly be interesting to see how much does end up going into that pool, but I think it's a really fun sequence. As you said, a couple potential horses that you might be able to single, so certainly can find some value in there. Really looking forward to taking a stab at it today.
And we'll have Acacia's play a bit later in the show, and race number 7 way, way, way down the line will kick off Saturday's 50-cent late pick 5. Couple of stakes as well on this Saturday card. There really is something for everybody today, and I've been really happy to see just the buzz on social media with all those horse racing fans about and attacking and handicapping today's Rainbow Six with the mandatory payout. Now, let's start things out. Of course, we always begin in race number 1, and that'll be the opening leg of the early pick 5. We will put in a play anchoring, I think, like most. Anybody putting in an early pick 5 play, say less than $50 or so, might be centering it heavily around the number 2, Better Be Fast, who's a big even money favorite on the morning line and may start at an even shorter price. 2-4-10 to me to start the day in race number 1, followed by a 3x2x3 spread for $27 on the nose. And getting on to this first race, Acacia, it's a very competitive race on the turf, one in which, and again, not to put too much stock into the odds with about 60 minutes out from race number 1, but there'll be some good prices in here, and I'm encouraged that the 4 Doing the Watusi has run, my top pick, has run well in the past, going 2 turns, basically at this 8 furlong distance, 7.5 on the grass. I don't think 5 is really her game, and I think she's just an informed, logical contender stretching back out.
Oh, Doing the Watusi's a tough one for me. Now, I would love to see her win because we've had this deal going on that if she does win, Ron will have to actually do the Watusi for us. So we'll see if he does have to dance today. But I do not like this horse, and I'm probably just talking her into the winner's circle because she is one of those horses that has a lot of speed, had a lot of hope for her even in the championship meet when she was back in the barn of Michael Matz, but she'll just go out to the front and she is never really able to hold on. She's certainly good at picking up a check, but just 1 for 10 and all of those near misses, I just couldn't put her on top, and like I said, maybe I just talked her into the winner's circle. But the number 7, A Square to Spare, is where I did land. I was encouraged by that race last time, even though she did finish behind doing the Watusi. I think that she spotted well in here, and she has some speed as well, and I hope that she sits just off of it, that she could be just in that perfect stalking spot.
All right, fair enough. On to race number 2. We'll see if we can get Ron Nicoletti to do the old Watusi here in our paddock studios. Sit tight, maybe even more interest and intrigue in watching the first and doing the Watusi. Let's get on to the second. We finish off an all-turf early double. In fact, the first 3 races today are all on the Gulfstream Park grass as we bring on a crew of 3-and-up filly and mare, 12-5 maiden claimers. And watching Sarah the Queen Bee, who was the ruler of yesterday's early pick 5, if you will. She won by about 10 lengths, it seemed, maybe even over 10. She had the connections of Frank Calabrese, Angel Rodriguez, the trader in a corner. I think she looks pretty good here in the second race. A lot went well for her last time out in a race where she, with all due respect, put in quite the hang job.
She did, and I actually do think she had a little bit of a trouble, and we'll go back and show that race on the 14th. She was the number 5 that day, and she was actually in between horses early on. She came from off of the pace, and we'll let it roll from there as they're coming around the turn, because she does end up kind of getting stuck in a little bit tight right there. You could see that she did have to bump a little bit. Again, she's the number 5 kind of there in between horses, and we'll let it go from there. I don't think it really totally knocked her off stride, but just a little bit that she did look like she was drifting a bit in the stretch as well. So she still is a bit green. She's had 5 starts so far, but kind of maybe a 3-year-old filly that was just taking a little bit of time to catch on. And as you said, she was beaten as the favorite. She did hang last time, but now in the new barn and Tyler Gaffleone aboard, today's got to be the day.
Yeah, it looks like she timed it right in the typical Calabrese move. Claim for 20, jam right back about 2 months later for the 12-5. Big favorite in race number 2. On to the third, and all-turf pick 3 awaits today at Gulfstream Park as we finish off the first 3. At a mile and a 16th, this one a maiden special weight for 3-and-up, and unquestionably, this is a spot where D. Wayne Lucas University and the Army of White Bridles comes into play, where you've got Mike Maker sending out the 2 run time, and then another former and perhaps the most famous ex-Lucas assistant in Todd Pletcher sending out the 3. All about Voodoo and the number 5, Slamey. Now, as far as the spotlight goes, take us through the replay most recently with the number 2 run time, who strikes me as more of a grinder, but a grinder who did finish up okay last time out behind 2 Pletcher horses.
Exactly right. So he's the number 2 that day, and we'll let it roll. I really like today that he's going to be 3rd off the layoff because he was really unsettled in the saddling area last time, so I'll be interested to see how he's acting today. Might have just needed a couple races. And we can just freeze right there because I want to highlight the number 9 here is Robusto for Todd Pletcher, and the number 1 is Hieroglyphics for Todd Pletcher. So those are the top 2 that he's chasing, and we'll let it roll. Again, he's trying to catch those 2 Pletcher runners. They were much the best that afternoon, but I thought the number 2 run time was grinding very nicely there in the stretch.
Yeah, we'll see if he can improve 3rd off the layoff. He's going to have to run another good race, and this is one of those maker horses that's just taken a little time to get into a groove, but it seems like they've got him in the best form of his life. Now, is that good enough to defeat Slamey? Because we know what we're getting from Slamey. He's run very well in his last couple of starts and could not cut down another Todd Pletcher stablemate of his, most recently in Keeping It Quiet when he was narrowly in front of Diamond Square. I just like the progression that Slamey has held. I like that he's got Tyler Gaffleone, who you would assume at this stage of the game probably had his choice of which Pletcher horse he wanted to ride, and he chose Slamey, who I'm going to take on top. You'll take run time, and we'd be remiss not to mention the other Pletcher runner, the 3, All About Voodoo, who's got some sort of pedigree. We'll bring on the Blewitts Bullets, and there's certainly a lot to digest here with the pedigree being out of the great Voodoo Dancer, who was a 7-figure earner for trainer Christophe Command. Oh, she was a good one. Had some great battles, I remember, about a decade or so ago, maybe a little longer, with Tate's Creek at Belmont Park in Saratoga. She's been a prolific Voodoo dancer, that is. She's been a prolific producer as well. Whole bunch of multiple winners in the family. And maybe, and I've been a little disappointed with him as a sire so far, but maybe after watching more Spirit run away and hide in last Saturday's Met Mile, maybe Escondrea is a sire worth keeping an eye on.
It certainly could be. Now, the one downside I would say about this one is that first-time starters on the turf for the Pletcher barn is not his most productive move. Just looking at surface differences, there really is a big disparity. In fact, first-time starters in maiden special weights on the turf at Gulfstream is just 13% win with an ROI just a little bit more than $1. So that is why I put the little bit of the pause on All About Voodoo today. But I think it's really between those top barns and those 3 horses.
No question, who have done a really good job with their starters here during the spring-summer meet at Gulfstream Park. Race number 4 in the afternoon. It took us a while, but we finally get up to our opening race on the main track. Listed as fast. Race number 4, a 7-furlong, $25,000 allowance optional claimer. And I'm anxious to see what the 5, 20, and 4 can do getting back on the dirt. This was a horse who I thought, and obviously, ran very well in his trainer change debut for Anna Varsi, who I'm not familiar with, but she got a very good effort out of this horse back on May 14th when he finished up full of run behind the good Express Jet, who fired a very nice shot on the fast footing. He didn't run yesterday, but that's okay because that last out dirt race for 20 and 4 on May 14th produced McFly, a live field. I like 20 and 4 as the favorite. You and I, the cold 5-8 exact the box.
And McFly upsetting the Express Jet train yesterday on the sloppy track. But I didn't love 20 and 4 on the turf. He actually ran okay on the turf last time. They switch him right back to the dirt. And Anna Varsi has had a couple of really live runners, especially here in the summer. But I was still a little bit hesitant about putting him right on top. I did land on the number 8, Mock My Day, who I think is just coming out of stronger competition top to bottom in the terms of the fields that he was facing. Third behind Arlimo Joe last time, a horse that's just been very solid. And I thought that he's kind of one of those tactical ones. He can win on the lead. In fact, he has won on the lead. And I think he's going to show some early zip from that outside post, and he has Tyler Gaffleone up.
Yeah, Tyler G coming off a rare no-winning afternoon. In fact, he was 0 for maybe 8 or 9 on the Friday card, but today begins anew, and he'll be the first. He's odds on to be the first rider to get to that 100-win mark during the spring-summer meet. We'll see what he can do in the driver's seat on Mock My Day. Will he make your day in race number 4? We hope a Rainbow 6 makes your day, and we get closer to the sequence as we get on to race number 5. This is the first of 2 stakes on our Saturday card, the $100,000 Florida-bred restricted Ginger Punch. This one for 3 and up, fillies and mares on the turf at a mile and a 16th. Of course, the namesake, and it's always fun on these shows to walk down memory lane and talking about Voodoo Dancer a couple races back, and even thinking back to Ginger Punch and her racing career for Bobby Frankel, winner of a very, very sloppy and bad weather Breeders' Cup Distaff in 2007 at Monmouth Park.
Yeah, 2007 Eclipse Older Mare. She actually did start her career right here at Gulfstream. She won the Sunshine Millions Distaff, so pretty cool to see a race named after this horse. And I think both of the stakes actually came up very strong today, and pretty fun to see as the number 8 family meeting talking about Sunshine Millions Distaff winners. We have a winner of that right here in family meeting who was very impressive throughout the winter meet here at Gulfstream. And we do actually have her most recent race, though, at Pimlico, because you can say, well, she's a multiple stakes winner, and then she was 5th in an allowance at Pimlico. But this, I mean, you talk about a blanket finish. We'll go back to this race. This was on Black-Eyed Susan Day, and she's the number 7. And you can see, first of all, just how wide she is there in the yellow cap. And they are just strung out so wide across the track. I just want to freeze it right there.
This looks like the Arc de Triomphe watching this down to the wire.
All of these horses are in with a shot right now as we're coming down. And there's poor family meeting, widest of all on the outside. And we'll just let it go from there. So she did technically finish 5th as they got down to the wire. Armoire on the outside, the number 12 was the one that did end up getting the win. Just, it was like everybody was a cavalry charge towards the wire.
Yeah, crazy finish. It really looked like one of those major Group 1 stakes over in Europe where they just line up in the turn for home, and it's a sprint down to the wire. She's obviously run very well on both the east and west coast of Florida, the 8 family meeting, and she's clearly, I mean, judging and taking that April 2nd stake, the Tampa Bay Distaff Turf at face value, she's very close in ability with the number 7, Something Else. And I think this is a real fascinating race going in, the Ginger Punch, because you have in the ability department very little separating Something Else and Family Meeting. They both have similar running styles, and they have the 2 leading riders at the meet, Edgar Zayas and Tyler Gaffalione. It really becomes, I think, kind of a jockey's race in a way between those two. And as far as the minor awards, it might be a bit of a gap to everybody else. To me, and clearly you, Lori Storr, if one of the top 2 stubs their toe, she might be the beneficiary for Marty Wilson.
And Lori Storr does have some backlash to work off of. Obviously, the number 7, Something Else, an easy one to root for Leo Espora Jr. He did say if he won the stake, it would be in his honor of the recently passed Manny Espora. So, of course, as I said, an easy one to root for.
Yeah.
But she's a little bit of a tough one because she is one that's always very unsettled in the afternoon. She stays in the horse pass. She doesn't come to the walking ring. She's gets a little bit hot and keyed up prior to the race, but that's just normally how she is. So I don't think you can take that as a negative, and hopefully, and I think in the last couple of starts, Edgar Zayas has done a good job channeling that on the racetrack.
And the good news, she doesn't have to ship. She can just walk from her stall right over to the racetrack here at Gulfstream Park. Moving on to race number 6, in which we will, on the other side of this quick timeout, mandatory Rainbow Six Madness when we come back.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
We're all chasing that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow today, and we hope today is your day. It's good to have you with us on the second half of this Saturday edition of Gulfstream Today. Acacia and Jason on a sunny Saturday morning here at beautiful Gulfstream Park. Start of Father's Day weekend as well. Should be a popular weekend to join us on track, and we hope you do come out. And now, well, drum roll, please. It's time for Acacia's Rainbow Six ticket. $43 or so has been sort of your go-to number. Did we up the ante? Indeed, we did today.
I did.
And for good reason.
I did. I stepped it up a little bit, just over $50 for me today. But I do have a single. I'm going to single Enterprising in the very last race in the stake. I thought that was, if I could find a single, that was the way to do it. He's coming in excellent form, I think. And, you know, they don't run the races on paper. They run them on the track. So we have to see if he does show up, but I think he will. So I'm using 2 horses to start things off, one with experience in the 6 Go Astray, and a first-time starter working very well for Antonio Sano and Crazy for Sophia. I'm going to spread in the 7th race. I had a long shot scratch out of Chatino, so I'll just use 4 in there. Horses towards the outside for me. Using 3 in the 8th race. That's, I think, a pretty tough meet. In 10, though, Dardo is the horse to beat. And then spreading again with 4 in the 9th as we get to the 10th. Just using 3 in there, 62.50 claimer before we get to our final stake in the nightcap with Enterprising as a single.
Who is a good one, and I think on anybody, sort of a budget-minded anybody, if you will, Enterprising will be sort of the anchor for everybody's play, and it'll be interesting if we have, and we'll see what shakes out, again, through the final 6 races on the program, but if it's one of those sequences where you have logical kinds of horses winning, maybe some mid-priced horses, a lot of pressure is going to be on the strong shoulders of Enterprising, a lot of pick 6 hopes and dreams. But the starting point is race number 6, and obviously you do have some guesswork to go across the board in this group of 2-year-old filly maiden special 8 runners at 4.5 furlongs. 2 in here with experience, the 6 Go Astray and the 8 Holy Diver. My feeling is a slightly above average firster will beat them both, including the shorter price Go Astray. And you would just think, given the overall makeup for the 2 Crazy for Sophia, that they like her, and there's probably, and we're the last to find out if there's any word out about a horse, but you would think she's live today with Tyler.
I would think so, and we've seen a couple of first-time starters winning already for the Sano barn, and I alluded to the work tab. Her most recent one, 5 furlongs in 1 minute and 3, and she is debuting at the 4.5 furlongs in this 2-year-old filly field, but I think that it's perhaps not as strong as some of the 2-year-old races that we've seen, and if she lives up to those works, she should be good today.
Yeah, quick little rundown of Crazy for Sophia, and again, you can use the tote board, obviously prior to the start of today's Rainbow Six, but for Gaffleone to show up here, I think that is a major, major check mark. That's why that little statistic, or at least statement's number one. We talked about Rose to Fame, who won here a couple weeks ago for Antonio, and the only sibling out of this Bernstein mare is a winner. Now, talking about some of the others, you know, you can mention the 6 Go Astray, who clearly is a major threat to wire the field if some of these firsters don't get off all that great.
And she's definitely a pace player in here, and she's shown up looking very well prepared in each of her 3 races. Now, last time out, she was beaten to finish second by a more significant margin. She was ultra game 2 starts back to just be beaten by a head. But since they added the blinkers, her speed has improved, and they actually stepped her back up from maiden 50 to the maiden special. So I think her experience will be her key, but she's got to kind of take that next step forward.
Yeah, again, a live firster will beat most likely the 6 Go Astray, but the fact that she's already run and she's got some foundation should not be discounted. In fact, maybe I was a little gung-ho putting her 4th. Maybe 2nd or 3rd would have been a bit more likely for the 6 Go Astray. We'll see, and we'll see who they bet. On to race number 7, final pick 5 begins the late 5 on this Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Quick little rundown here, and once again, the pressure is on Enterprising. He's the single in race number 11, our co-featured Soldier's Dance. We'll use 3 in race number 7, 2 by 2 by 3, and in talking about my 3 horses, I clearly think most of the talent and the inform runners are on the outside, from the 8 Vetalago, the 9 Golden Point, who's a rare off the claim runner for Ralph Nix, the 10 East Rock, and I hate the post with the 11 Lay It Down. I'm glad this race isn't 7.5 furlongs. At least it's a mile and a 16, so there's a little more of a run into the first turn, but Luca Panici, who's coming off a 2-win Friday, is going to need to put forth a very good ride with Lay It Down. What are you doing here?
Well, I agree with you. I use Lay It Down in 3rd, but I think the post is going to be the biggest upset for him. I did land on the horse off the claim because there are a couple things about Golden Point. He's always a horse that I've really respected, and he actually, in his last few starts, he's worn cheek pieces. So they add the blinkers on today, so I think a little bit more coverage. That might help him take that next step forward. A lot of times, horses that are more distracted, they put the cheek pieces on, and when they step it up to blinkers, that just gives him a little bit more coverage, a little bit more focus. But the biggest thing for him is that he had a very sneaky trouble trip last time. Amisale Jaramillo could not get him into a good spot going into the first term. He was incredibly wide last time out. He was breaking from the outside. He's got the outside again today, but I hope he's just a little bit more forwardly placed than he has been.
Yeah, we love those older geldings. We've got one here, and a likable one. In fact, not a gelding, an 8-year-old, though, one bred in Ireland in Vetalago, who was against the grain of a speed-friendly turf 2-back on May 10th. And let's backtrack with the spotlight to his last start on May 29th, and got a great ride that day for, I thought, from Edgar Zayas, just grabbing the bull by the horns and sending him to the lead, and had everybody adjust around him in that big white blaze of Vetalago. And you want to talk about a stubborn old man who just refused to let anybody by.
He certainly did, and this was an interesting race, and I just want to freeze right there because we'll highlight the number 6, Dominate, who was really the biggest threat to him both early and late, and we'll let it roll. And Dominate was actually kind of keen early, tried to run up and pressure him, forced to settle back, and then just very stubborn with the top 2. Edgar Zayas kept after Vetalago, and he held on that day. I thought it was a huge race from him.
Let's move on to race number 8, Acacias. We go down the road and we head back to the main track fairly deep in the Saturday program at GP. $10,000 maiden claimer. These are 3 and up. You've got Enterprising as a sort of, in a way, universal single for many in race number 11 today. I think the other sort of potential single in this Rainbow Six happens to be the one Dardo, who really ran well and ran a very, very wacky and odd race first time out.
Yes, the comment is lost action at the 3/8 pole, and that's really the best way to describe it. He kind of just stopped running, and then he got back into the race, and it was really interesting because I made notes on of that day. It was a sealed sloppy track taken off of the turf, but I thought he looked very well prepared for the Sano barn. And speaking to the connections afterwards, they were actually really high on him with the way that he was training. And
as
then
a two-year-old.
As a two-year-old,
Right.
and then he did not show up as he continued to age, and so he did debut at the maiden 12.5 tag. So maybe those are the questions that they have about him, but I do think there is some raw talent there.
I love considering how much they liked him apparently as a two-year-old, and it took him a long time to finally run, and he clearly ran in a lower maiden claiming race. I love that he wheels back on short rest. I don't like that they just jam him in for 10,000. Not that you'd be looking to take on the best maidens in the country, but the drop, even with the quick turnaround, is a little worrisome. He's a must-use, of course. We'll try to get a little cute here with the 4 Mongolian Dancer. Maybe this horse just can't run at all. But if he's going to run, it'll be today. Trainer David Kazin, you have extolled the virtues of this barn on this show. We liked them yesterday. It didn't work out with Indominus. But I like the move here. Just straight-up maidens, turf to dirt over the last 5 years. He's batted at a high win percentage, and he clearly has hit the board in nearly half of those starts. 282 is the ROI. Mongolian Dancer with the blinkers on for me in race number 8. We'll move on to race number 9. Let's keep the pace going as we head back to the turf. 7.5 furlongs with these 3 and up, $10,000 claimers, and this is yet another skullbuster in this Rainbow Six.
Yes, it is.
Trip and racing luck are going to be paramount because it's just very tough, at least in my estimation, to really split up a good chunk of this field.
It really is tough, and interesting. We landed on a flip-flopped trifecta in here, but I think the number 8, Yo No Say, for Efren Losa Jr., and that actually translates into I don't know, which is pretty much what you say about this race, because Yo No Say, he's second off the layoff now. I thought it was an okay race from him last time off of that about 6-month layoff, actually, and this was a horse I'd been impressed with in his first couple starts at Gulfstream Park West, so we'll see if he can recapture some of that form.
And let's look at a positive stat in the case of this gelding by Regal Ransom, whose second start off a layoff that totaled about 5.5 months. As you can see, 5 for 18 is pretty good, 28%. In the money close to 60% of the time. The ROI is on the short side, but I don't think it really applies here because this horse will be at least a respectable price in the middle of the pack. Bad post for the 12 Great Skellig. You're going to need every bit of racing luck and the talents of Tyler Gaffalione to work out a trip with a horse who does like to rally from out of it.
He does. That's why I used him a little bit further down the ticket, because he is kind of a late running type. Maybe you just kind of let the race unfold to the inside, whereas the number 11 Zarmo, I think that he has some natural speed. I hope Ramsey Zimmerman gets a little bit more aggressive today and sends him more from that outside post.
Last dirt race on the card goes as the 10th, the opening leg of Saturday's late double. 62.50 claimers, 3 and up. We say it all the time, and we mean it when we say it. Heart and soul, bread and butter of the game, and you've got some old warriors in here, no question about it. Now, you do have one of these old warriors for Joe Catanese, who was one of my favorite people here at Gulfstream Park. He's clearly got a 7-year-old and 60-race veteran in the 9 capital city in razor-sharp form. Beat a few of these last time out. Where do you stand on him winning 3 in a row?
Well, this is such an easy horse to root for, and I've liked him in his last couple of starts. I actually made a bit of money on him, too, back when he was 5-1, but I think that is kind of that question that he just keeps winning. When is he going to be able to not sustain that win streak anymore? And I did think that he has a nice versatile running style. He's certainly very tactical, but I landed on another hard-knocking type who's had some trouble. The number 3, Crazy Frank C, he hopped at the start last time out, and he still managed to finish second. And I think that he's a horse that's better being a little bit closer, so I hope that he gets a sharper break. He had to steady 2 starts back. He's had some nightmare trips, but he's a 5-time winner at this distance. He's actually, all 5 of his wins have come at the 7/8, which I really think does does put him ahead of some of the others in here. He's a sharp 5-year-old gelding that runs pretty often as well and has talent.
Now, Capital City, again, looking for 3 in a row, just tough to do. If for no other reason, he's a lower-level claimer, and we're fans of his, but at a short price with that recent exposed form, just not for me. Because, again, these horses usually, for the most part, just take turns beating one another. My idea, and I'm happy to see you've got him second with the Colt 3-1 Exacta, is the one Let's Go Ben, who I want to change the name to Let's Go Ron. But anyway, we'll root for Let's Go Ben today, and trainer Keith Bourgeois, who, with a big sample, has done pretty well with his horses making that turf-to-dirt move. We'll show you a quick stat here. He's got a positive ROI, bats 22% in the win column, and that is good enough for me with the horse who I thought ran fine in a couple of off-the-turf races, going a bit shorter earlier in the summer here at Gulfstream Park. But even though it's a cheaper kind of claiming race late in this Rainbow Six sequence, there's a lot of form to go on. It is a race where even if you're spreading, maybe use 3 or 4 at the most, and you should be good to go, I think.
And we were talking about this in the office. Sometimes you have these lower level claiming races, and there are just a lot of horses that are very solid and sharp at this level that you can make a case for. So even though they're a lower tag, they're very competitive races, and that's where you can find some good value too.
A B level or even B- effort out of Enterprising today in the nightcap, race number 11, the Soldier's Dance on the turf, rescheduled and redrawn from last Saturday when we had all that rain. It won't get it done. I think there are enough informed, talented horses in here where if Enterprising, for whatever the reason, doesn't show up with close to his best, he can get beat. But anything, I'd say, maybe from a B+ up for Mike Maker and Tyler G, he's just going to beat these horses. He's just too good.
He's been in excellent form. He was running against the likes of Divisadero and Grade 1 Company at Churchill last time out. He was multiple stakes winner, 2 in a row at Fairgrounds. And I thought that race 2 starts back was a huge performance from him because he broke sharply from the rail. He kind of settled back, and he was just holding on with other horses closing outside of him. So I think that he's in very good form now. Perhaps the downside is he's 0 for 4 over this track here at Gulfstream. But if you look back, he did win in Restricted Stakes Company, State Bred Stakes Company at Gulfstream Park West. And in the Sunshine Millions turf, he was beaten by Arway just by a neck, and I thought he was so game in that race. So I agree, he's absolutely the horse to beat, but kind of an up-and-comer, if you will, the 7, Keep the Dream Alive. He's definitely one to keep an eye on.
And aptly named on the cash-out leg of this mandatory Rainbow Six payout that will have upwards of $4, $5, $6 million. We'll see what they bet into it today, but I thought that was kind of cute that Keep the Dream Alive in the last leg of the sequence. We'll try to make it 2 for 2 off that trainer change to Joe Orsino. We're starting to run out of time, but let's look at a very game effort from a horse who got a very good ride from Edgard Zayas. I think Edgard, one of his strengths is as a front-end speed rider and prepping for races that don't have much pace, and he put this horse as the outside speed and very gritty and determined down to the wire.
Very gritty, and I think that that was a perfect race to set him up for the stake because you can see that he's really game. Again, he has a horse to his inside and one closing to his outside, and he's able to hold on, and I think that really helped him in terms of fitness and in terms of off of that layoff in the first start for the barn, being able to take that next step forward.
Going to be a fun one here at Gulfstream Park. We'll wrap up the action before 7 p.m., at least as far as the live action goes. We'll have Acacia, Ron, myself all day with you here in our paddock. And, of course, the voice of Gulfstream Park, none other than track announcer Pete Aiello. He's coming up next with a mandatory Rainbow Six payout, Scratches and Changes Saturday.